Well, thanks for being on. Obviously, preparations underway for the home opener, and we're looking forward to that tomorrow. I certainly want to get into some of the stuff that is being talked about with regard to a couple young superstars on this team. But before that, I would just ask you, with two series under the belt here, how do you feel like this team is looking so far?
I think we've looked all right. Obviously, there's been some good, some not so good. But we played 6 close games. I would say yesterday was probably a little closer than it needed to be. But to come out of the chute with really some high pressure baseball from the jump, extra innings on opening day, putting a lot of guys in pressure situations, coming off a short spring training. Pretty happy overall with how everybody's responded, how the vibe has been. It's taken the bats a little while to get going. Good to see some signs of life yesterday. Like I said, we've had some guys tested right out of the chute, especially in our bullpen. For the most part, really happy with how they responded.
I won't ask you a question that requires an answer on contract specifics or offer specifics, because I would guess that your answer would just be that you don't discuss specifics. So, but I'm sure you're aware that fans may wonder why you have two young superstars in the form of Bogaerts and Devers that don't necessarily appear to be, based on outside view, happy with what the Red Sox offered. And why you weren't able to get deals done in either case. Could you talk a little bit about that in non-specific terms?
Yeah, I'll do my best. And you're right. Like I've said this a bunch of times. Like I don't think it's something we should get into detail on publicly. I just don't think it's right for us to do. And there's obviously reports out there, and they then get into confirming, denying, refuting, correcting, whatever. Like, I don't think that's very productive. But, what I will say generally, whenever you're talking extensions, free agency is free agency, obviously. When you're talking extensions and doing things early, so to speak, like now you're adding more variables, right? There's risk that gets shared when you do those things. There's upside that gets shared. There's just much more potential, even if the desire is there and the player wants to be here and we want the player here. There's just much more potential for people to see the world differently. And, in those cases, without getting into too much detail, it was fairly clear, early on that we weren't going to align. Obviously, if we were seeing the world exactly the same, we would have aligned. But, those guys are still here. And we didn't find that alignment this time, and they're here, and they're going to go out, and we're all going to go out and try to win a World Series, and we'll have a chance to take this up again down the road. And things will be different for everybody at that point in time, and we'll see where we're at, and hopefully we can find that path.
I'll try to approach this in a bunch of different ways and see if I can get anywhere. So, on looking specifically at Devers, or let me ask it this way. Philosophically, where do you stand when it comes to long-term deals, 10-year deals with players?
Yeah, and I think, this question came up, obviously, when, we went through everything that we went through with Mookie when I first got here. And, I said, for me, there's not necessarily like, hey, philosophically, I'm opposed to it. I think it gets down to, obviously, the player, the terms, the timing, and the situation you're in. Obviously, those deals, they bring a lot of stability. They have different upsides and risks. It really just comes down to the terms and the timing. And, we're certainly in a very different place now than we were a couple years ago. And, it's again, when you're this far out from free agency, there's a lot of different ways to see the world of what that time should mean for each side. And sometimes it makes it easier to align, but sometimes it makes it tougher because there's different ways to look at, what that runway should mean for everybody. So we haven't found that path yet, with Rafi, but obviously this guy's one of the bright young stars in the game, and it's awesome that he's here, and we hope he's here for a long time.
Chaim, how do you make sure, as a former athlete, it's always like contract talks can sometimes bleed into performance or relationships. So how do you make sure that there are no issues that, obviously when you're not able to get something done at the time that, both parties want to get it done, that it doesn't affect the performance or the relationship moving forward?
Yeah, the performance, obviously, everybody handles that differently. With respect to those two guys, I mean, they are tremendous professionals. They're focused on winning. I don't have any concerns about that with either of them. As far as the relationship, look, I'm not going to speak for anybody. I think in this business, especially from a front office perspective, we're constantly, trying to have really good relationships with all of our players, understanding that, there's a business side to the game, and that's not to single out those two guys. It's true with everybody. And that's always the case. And, you can have tremendous relationships with a player. And then sometimes, I've been in those situations where you have to deliver bad news. You have a young player who you're really fond of that gets to know you, and then you have to send him down, something like that. Those conversations do happen. I think everybody's pretty mature about those things. That's what we all try to do, is maintain an environment where, people understand that there's a lot of different factors here, but they know, that this is a place where they can be themselves, and that they know our intentions and our ultimate goal, which is to have a championship team. And as long as that's in place and we're open and honest with our players and we're accessible to them, I think, we can maintain a pretty good environment. And that's what we've tried to do here.
Chaim, you bring up the negotiations with Mookie in regards to what's going on now, and there were a lot of rumors back when that happened, and I think the feeling amongst fans and the media maybe was that he just wanted to go out west. He didn't want to be in Boston, and today the New York Post has an article out saying Rafael Devers wants to spend forever in Boston. Does that ever come across your desk? Does that conversation ever happen between you and these players where it is, money's great, but they want to be somewhere, or money's great and they want to be here?
Yeah, I've never worried too much about, and even in the case with Mookie, about what, the speculation that other people have about where a player does or doesn't want to be. We know those guys like it here, and that's meaningful to us.
We discussed the other day briefly Kike being mic'd up the other night. I love it. Do you like it? And how do the players feel about it?
It's funny, when this first came up, I definitely think, from a fan perspective, it is entertaining. There's no question about it. I would never want a player put in a position where they're asked to do something while they're competing on the field that they're not comfortable doing. We all know, look, again, we're in the entertainment business, right? We want eyeballs on our product, and there's a lot of things that we all do to get that, and you hope that it doesn't take away from competing. But, one thing you could say about Kike, he's not afraid of the spotlight at all. So I don't think it took him off his game. And, anytime those types of things come our way, we always want to make sure, starting with Alex, that everybody's comfortable with what's going to happen during the game, and that, we're not taking away from competing. We appreciate that people want to hear from our players. They want to see us. This is one of the flagship franchises in all professional sports. We like that. And, we like being front and center. We just want to make sure that we're able to compete, to the best of our ability.
Hi, you talk about the mic'd up and some of the technology in baseball. In ESPN, they were highlighting the catcher to pitcher device that the Yankees were using, and during the game, the Sunday night game we played against them. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like that is something that helps the game? Does it slow the game down, or what's your mindset when you look at the communication being utilized between the catcher and the pitcher and that kind of device that they're using?
Yeah, I think in the long run, it should be a good thing for the game because we know how the game can slow to a crawl when there's a runner on second and everybody's worried about signs and the runner seeing those signs and relaying them to the hitter. So I think in the long run, this should help speed up the game. Now, obviously, anytime you're adopting something new, there's going to be some kinks to work out. And I think that's where we are right now as a sport, where it may be that early on, this is not going to make the game that much faster because everybody is getting used to this. and everybody is getting used to, when you're out there in a rhythm and you're trying to compete, and now there's a different way that you're getting the signs that might affect you mentally until you're used to it. So I think we'll get there as a sport. I think we're on the right path, and this is a good thing for us to be exploring. But, none of this stuff is something you can ever expect to be seamless.
Chaim, what's the purpose of presenting a contract that has no likelihood of being agreed to?
Well, again, I don't want to get into, the truth or lack thereof or any of that about anything that's out there. Look, I think every discussion you have, with any player about these sorts of things, the discussions start somewhere, and sometimes they progress and sometimes they don't. So, obviously, if these discussions had progressed, we'd be in a different place right now. They didn't, and again, we're excited to take it up again down the road.
All right. Well, 2:00 tomorrow. Any hints that you can give us on first pitch or anthem or anything? I know you always say that you leave that up to others, but you must know something.
Yeah, to be honest, I've been so focused on other things that I even if I wanted to spill the beans, I wouldn't even know which beans to spill, because I haven't been worried too much about that. The one thing I know, this organization does a tremendous job putting on a show, so I'm sure it's going to be awesome. And main reason it's going to be awesome is because our fans are going to be back, and we know what this place was like the last time it was full of our fans, and you're so excited. I mean, especially for guys that haven't experienced this. When you think about players that it's going to be their first home opener with the Red Sox, you can have a long and productive career in this game and never have a home environment like we have. And seeing it, what I experienced last fall for the first time, and seeing that is amazing. And I'm so excited to see it through the eyes of our guys who have not experienced that before in their careers. It's going to be awesome.
And for you too, think about it. You could be the president of the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, that one. Geez, you guys are just pushing me to see what you can throw out there that I won't touch. Look, all I'll say, hey, we have it really good here. We have the best fans. It is amazing here, and it's going to be amazing tomorrow. And it looks like, knock on wood, hopefully it's going to be a wonderful day. Our fans are going to bring it, and they always do, and it helps us win.
Any room in the suite? Maybe I'll slide over for a dog, third or fourth inning tomorrow.
If you never ask, so if you want to come in, we can hang.
All right. We hung a little in I don't want to reveal any inside information, but we hung a little in Fort Myers. I mean, I think we had a little fun down there.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, seriously, we should watch a few innings together someday.
All right. Okay.
Well, that's good. He's only used to watching a few innings anyway.
I have a very important question.
I need six tickets. I'm going to bring a few people.
Chaim, what would happen? Chaim, what would happen if Alex Cora pulled a Red Sox pitcher the way Roberts pulled Kershaw yesterday with the perfect game?
Well, I hope we're in that situation where our guy's throwing a perfect game. Let's get there and then see what happens. Look, this is, you talk about tough decisions. That's never a comfortable spot for a manager, especially early in the season, coming off a short spring. Weather was what it was there. It's a tough spot for a manager to be in. The way I look at it, look, obviously it's not my business to comment on, somebody else's organization, but I would, if we were in that situation, it's not an easy call. The one thing I would say is, whatever you think of those types of decisions, you have to respect, the intentions of the manager at that point, where, the only reason you do that is because you're focused on the long haul. You're focused on the ultimate goal, winning a championship and taking care of your player in the long term. And that doesn't mean the trade-offs are ever easy, but you have to respect those intentions. And, when those tough decisions happen and you look at a manager and any decision, and you're like, man, I would have gone another way. You got to respect the conviction it takes to say, listen, I've got my eyes on a different prize, and I'm going to follow that where it takes me.
Great to talk to you. Thanks for taking the time. We'll talk to you again soon, and go get them tomorrow. We'll look forward to talking to you soon, Chaim. All right?
Sounds good. Likewise.